In this session, we are going to understand the emergence of sociology. So the topic for today is actually emergence of sociology. Now, you can always expect a question from emergence of sociology in all alternate years. So if this year there is a question, next year there will be a question like that. So this is actually a favorite area of the examiner. So we need to prepare this topic completely. And if you know this topic, emergence of sociology, you can easily understand the other topics like scope of sociology, sociology and other sciences, the comparison, and some of the other topics also which are related to this particular topic. Okay, so we need to understand emergence of sociology. Now, what are the questions you can get from this? Let's start from the questions. The first question itself, you will be getting a short note, emergence of sociology. Okay, so you can get a short note like 10 marker, emergence of sociology directly. Okay, or the second way in which they will ask you this question is impact of modernity on the emergence of sociology. Okay, so impact of modernity and social changes on the emergence of sociology. Okay, so this is going to be another way in which they can ask you a question from the same topic, impact of modernity. So if you observe here, two new words are involved, modernity and social changes. So when you talk about emergence of sociology, in this particular question, you need to talk about modernity and social change. Or if simply they are asking about emergence of sociology, then also you need to discuss about modernity and the social changes associated with modernity. So it's actually, you need to talk about modernity. So you need to understand what you mean by modernity, and you need to see what are the changes caused by modernity and why these changes led to the emergence of sociology. So this is what we are going to answer. Okay, so this is how your answer will look like. So we need to talk about modernity, the changes caused by modernity, and the context of emergence of sociology, and how sociology prospered. Okay, after the emergence, what is the context for the development of sociology. Okay, so this is how your answer we are going to prepare. Or another way in which they can ask you question is how modernity and social changes led to the emergence of sociology. It's the same question, same as the approach. We are going to discuss about this. Now, the other way in which they can ask you a long question like a 20 marker or a 15 marker is actually they give you a statement just like this. Sociology, okay, the statement will be something like this. Sociology emerged as a response to challenges posed before modernity. Comment, critically analyze, discuss, etc. Okay, so sociology emerged in response to challenges posed by modernity in Europe. Okay, now the question can be discuss, okay, it can be comment, it can be critically analyze, or whatever it is, we are going to answer these. Okay, so it depends on the question whether it is comment or discuss or critically analyze. The pattern of answer or the structure of the answer will vary. Okay, so for example, if the question is about critically analyze, okay, so then what you need to do is the structure will be look like this. So in the question they are talking about modernity in Europe and challenges posed by modernity, right? So what we need to discuss is what was the situation in Europe before modernity, and we will understand it as dark ages. Okay, so you need to talk about the previous situation, dark ages. We are going to discuss about this. Then we will talk about modernity. What do you mean by modernity? We call this period as Renaissance period. Okay, we'll come to that, or the age of enlightenment. Then we need to see the challenges posed by modernity. That means impact of modernity or the social changes which caused by modernity. So we will talk about changes or impacts, and we will tell the changes which led to the emergence of sociology. Okay, so like this. Then we will see the other factors also. Okay, other factors also. So that's how you will write the answer. Now we need to solve all these aspects now. So the question can be like this also. So they will ask you simply emergence of sociology. They can ask you sociology emerged as a response to challenges posed before modernity, comment, discuss, critically analyze, etc. Or how modernity and associated social changes led to the emergence of sociology. Like this also they can ask you question. Okay, whatever it is, what we are going to do is we need to talk about modernity. Okay, so we need to talk about modernity. Now, to understand modernity better, we should talk about the dark age. That means, so modernity is actually an ideology, and it actually happened during Renaissance period or age of enlightenment. I'm coming to all these things. I'm just giving you a broad structure of what we are going to discuss. So first we need to discuss about age of enlightenment. Now, how to answer this question? This discussion is confined in examination point of view. So basically, you need to discuss about modernity, right? So if you need to discuss about modernity, this is actually during the period of age of enlightenment, or this period is actually called as Renaissance period. Okay, I'll be coming to all these things. Renaissance period or age of enlightenment. Age of enlightenment. So when we discuss about modernity, we have to discuss about Renaissance or age of enlightenment. So obviously we need to give a brief introduction about the dark ages. Before enlightenment, what happened? What was the situation? So we call it as dark ages. So we have to talk about dark ages first. Then we will see the age of enlightenment. Age of enlightenment. And then we talk about modernity. Okay. Then we talk about changes caused by modernity. And then we talk about emergence of sociology, and then we also talk about the thinkers. Okay, the thinkers who increased the scope of the subject or sociology. Okay, so these are the aspects that we need to cover. So let me give you a quick idea of the discussion. So first we need to discuss about dark ages, then we talk about Renaissance period, then we talk about the various elements of this Renaissance period. So various revolutions on different aspects like scientific revolution, intellectual revolution, commercial revolution, etc. And together, all this together we call as modernity. Okay, then this modernity led to a lot of changes. So you can see profound social changes, and this led to emergence of sociology. Okay, so this is our discussion. Now let's start off with dark ages. Just an introduction, you don't want to talk too much about dark ages. Basically we need to talk about modernity. So when we discuss about modernity, we call it as Renaissance period, or we can understand it as age of enlightenment. The reason is there are a lot of changes happened. Okay, there are a lot of changes happen in terms of scientific revolution, intellectual revolution, commercial revolution, etc. So this period is called as age of enlightenment. But what was the time, or what was the period before this? That period was known as the European society before age of enlightenment was known as dark ages. Okay, so it is based on agricultural feudal estate system, and the society was rooted in a very orthodox religious view. Okay, so everything is based on religion and very orthodox society, and the church was very important. Church and priest was the key players, and they have given excessive reliance to religion, excessive reliance on religion and its beliefs. Okay, so religion and its beliefs. On the other side, if you talk about political aristocracy, they are engaged in wars. Okay, so political aristocracy, they are engaged in wars, unmindful of the plight of the people. They were not thinking about what the people are interested in, or they are not concerned about the people or the public. They are engaged in wars, okay, to expand their territory and all. So this is what you need to write about dark age. 1 or 2 sentences, not more than that. European society before the age of enlightenment was based on agricultural estate system, feudal estate system. Okay, and this period was known as dark ages. The church and the priest, they gave excessive reliance on religion and its beliefs. Okay, and the political aristocracy, they are engaged in wars, unmindful of the plight of the people. Okay, this period is known as dark ages. So that you can call before 13th century or before 12th century, etc. That the time of dark ages. Now medieval Europe, when we talk about, underwent huge transformation in terms of scientific, commercial and intellectual revolution. Okay, so we can see a lot of changes, scientific, commercial and intellectual spheres, and these dimensions, these changes were gradually accumulating, and you can see huge transformation during 15th to 18th centuries. Okay, so these revolutions have brought profound changes in the society. Okay, now these revolutions are collectively called as Age of Enlightenment, Age of Enlightenment, or the Renaissance period. Okay, so Age of Enlightenment or Renaissance period. So first is Dark Age, then Age of Enlightenment or Renaissance period. So when we talk about Age of Enlightenment, we are talking about scientific, intellectual and commercial revolution. So we can call this as modernity. So this as modernity, the changes, okay, that you can understand basically as modernity. Now we need to see various dimensions of modernity. So when we talk about modernity, let's discuss about various dimensions of modernity, or where you saw the changes, drastic changes. The first one, we can talk about the intellectual dimension. Okay, intellectual dimension. So the changes are basically, now more than religion, there is faith in science. Okay, faith in science. Now the intellectual started logical inquiry based on evidence and reason rather than the mere beliefs. Okay, so logical inquiry based on evidence and reason, evidence and reason rather than mere belief. Okay, so one dimension of modernity you can write as intellectual dimension. So faith in science is more than religion. Now logical inquiry based on evidence and reason. So you can see the attendance in church and all is reduced, because earlier everything was explained through religion and religious beliefs, but now science started explaining everything. So the reliance on the religion actually came down. So this is actually the beginning of secularism. We'll come to that. Okay, now the second dimension you can understand as economic, various changes in economic dimension. What all things happen? The rational organization of production. Now the production is rationalized. Okay, so you can write rational organization of production, rational organization of production. Then you can see use of technology, industrial revolution. Okay, use of technology. See, when we talk about modernity, one of the most important aspect you need to talk about is actually industrial revolution. Okay, so I told you already, Age of Enlightenment or Renaissance period is in terms of commercial, intellectual and scientific revolution. In that scientific and commercial revolution, we already understood, right? We already spoke about. In that actually, industrial revolution is automatically implied. Okay, so use of technology, then rise of new companies. You can write here, rise of new companies, new management practices. Earlier in traditional society, the joint family used to take care of all these things, but now new management practices, etc. New management practices, expansion in trade. So these are the changes that you can see in economic dimension. So when we talk about modernity, two dimensions, one is intellectual and the other is economic. Now let's see what are the changes you can see in political dimension, or the dimension of modernity on the political side. Okay, so you can see the change from authoritarian to democratic system. Okay, so you can write here change from authoritarian to representative form, or you can write it as democracy. Okay, democracy, especially after French Revolution and all. Okay, so we will come to this French Revolution, I'll discuss. Then you can write emphasis on welfare of people, welfare of people. So when we discuss about dark ages, I told you political aristocracy was engaged in wars, unmindful of the plight of the people. Now they started thinking about the people also. They are considering the welfare of the public. Okay, now let's look at one more dimension, that is social dimension. Okay, so economic, political, social and intellectual. Let's look at the social dimension. What are the changes modernity brought? Okay, now you can see emergence of industrial society, emergence of industrial society. You can see emergence of modern education, not completely based on religion, right? Then you can see emergence of secularism, one of the most important dimension when we discuss about social side. Okay, nuclear families emerged, because see, industrialization means earlier feudal system, right? People are tied on land, but industrialization means industries means you need free labor. So people started migrating, so nuclear families started coming, right? So these are the four dimensions when we talk about modernity: social, economic, political, and intellectual. I hope this is clear for all of you. Now, if you observe, you can see the macro changes and micro changes, right? Because of modernity. So when we talk about macro changes, what are the macro changes you can see? You can see emergence of industrial society, right? So emergence of industrial society. Now within this you can see a lot of micro changes. There are a lot of impact for emergence of industrial society. See this emergence of nuclear families, new types of crimes, emergence of slum, etc. as a result of industrial society. So those things you will write under micro. Okay, so macro change you will understand as industrial society. Then another macro change you can write as rise of liberal democracy. Rise of liberal democracy. Now what happened with that is the micro change. Okay, that you can write. I am coming to that anyway. Then what else you can write under macro change? You can obviously write rise of middle class, rise of, because there are a lot of changes in economic setup. So rise of middle class, okay, and emergence of new intellectualism. So these are the macro changes you can write. Now when you write an answer for sociology, you need to always write macro micro difference. The macro changes are the broad changes that you can visualize in the society. Micro change is the small minute things, okay, within macro. Okay, so these are the macro changes that you can visualize because of modernity. Now if you take one by one out of this, what do you think? These changes are required or not? See, these changes are highly desirable and appreciated in the beginning, because European society earlier was based on, already that we discussed about dark ages, right? Now these changes are highly desirable, but what happened is with time these changes caused a lot of challenges before modernity. Although these things are expected and desirable, but it also posed a lot of challenges before modernity. So we need to see what are the challenges, and that challenges led to emergence of sociology. See, the process of industrialization was not very smooth. It came with a lot of challenges, like workers are working with very less wages, and okay, you can write workers, less wages, and inhuman working condition. Okay, one of the most important problem faced by workers: very low wage, inhuman working condition, number of hours of working is more, no protections, etc. Okay, so then you have already said the salaries are less and working condition. Then you can see emergence of nuclear families. That also created problem, like it led to split of joint families. Okay, then a lot of migration, okay, that led to nuclear families. And you can see a lot of instances of domestic violence. Okay, you can see a lot of instances of domestic violence. Now more and more people started migrating to the industrial areas, so you can see emergence of slum. Okay, so emergence of slum and a lot of new crimes. Okay, more population, new crimes like pickpocketing, etc. started during this time. Now all these things led to emergence of new type of poverty and deprivation. Okay, poverty and deprivation. So earlier this industrial society and all is not there, but now this also caused a new type of poverty and deprivation. Then when we talk about this rise of liberal democracy was not actually very smooth, right? See, in societies like England and all, it was gradual. Okay, the conversion from authoritarian or aristocracy to democracy was gradual, but in societies like France, it was preceded by a revolution, French Revolution. So a lot of uncertainties was present about the success of democracy, because democracy was altogether new for them. So you can write a point: uncertainty about the success of democracy. Okay, uncertainty about the success of democracy was always present, and that led to insecurity among the minds of people. Okay, insecurity among the minds of people. Then we have also discussed about rise of middle class, right? Rise of middle class. See, actually rise of middle class created a divide in society. Till then you have an upper class and a lower class. There are no intermediary. Either you belong to upper class or lower class. Now what happened is, new class emerged, middle class. That created a divide in society, and that caused a lot of another problems. So the emerging aspirations of the middle class could not be accommodated within the existing framework of the society. So there felt a need to redefine the society. So middle class emergence was also one of the reason for emergence of sociology. Okay, then now we have all these developments, like you can talk about the industrialization was not very smooth. The rise of democracy was also came to be associated with a lot of problems. Rise of middle class again was creating social divide. So to explain all these changes, you don't have a body of knowledge present at that time. Economics cannot define this, politics cannot define this, right? So history cannot define all those things. So there is a need for a new discipline arise. Okay, so that is actually the emergence. Now that set the context for sociology. That actually set the context for sociology. I told you already about intellectuals. Now the intellectuals started thinking of a new discipline which can explain all the changes, also to solve all these problems, and also to predict future of the society. And finally, people started thinking of a discipline which is similar to science, okay, scientific discipline like physics, chemistry, biology, etc. But later, the French sociologist Auguste Comte not only coined the word sociology, he also laid the basic foundation of sociology. Now, even before that, another intellectual, Saint-Simon, who thought of social physics, but it could not be implemented. And then Auguste Comte, who not only coined the term, who also laid the foundation for sociology. And he is considered as the father of sociology. So Auguste Comte is considered as the father of sociology. Now, both Saint-Simon and Auguste Comte were French philosophers, right? The reason is actually the immediate context was present in French, because French society was in total turmoil or chaos after the French Revolution. Okay, so the immediate context was present in France, and that's the reason why they thought of a science which can explain all the problems and to solve the problem and to predict the future course of the society. So Saint-Simon thought of social physics on the line similar to natural science, that is physics, but Auguste Comte later laid the foundation for sociology, and he is considered as the father of sociology. I hope this is clear for all of you. Now, after this, with this your answer is not complete. You need to also talk about the intellectual background, okay, that we have discussed about Saint-Simon and Auguste Comte. Then, in the future sessions, we will be discussing about scope of sociology, and we are going to discuss about a lot of other thinkers. You can add the points from that here, and you can write, with the help of these thinkers, sociology and the scope of sociology is widened. Okay, then you can also talk about certain methods and methodologies that we are going to use in sociology from the next discussion, and you can add it over here. With that, your answer will be complete. Okay, now the other factors which also help the emergence of sociology is actually the intellectual context. Okay, you need to also discuss about the intellectual context. We have a very well developed political history, intellectual context, right? We have a very well developed political history which provided huge data of the society, and that actually helped a lot in sociology. Okay, so a political history. And during 19th century, you can see a lot of new methods were devised for the investigation purposes. Okay, and that also could be used readily in sociology, like survey method, etc. Okay, so this also helped. Okay, so you can talk about intellectual context like this, well developed political history, and various methods were established or devised which could be readily used in sociology, just like survey method. And also you can also talk about Darwin's theory of evolution, Darwin's theory of biological evolution, which also used to study the evolution of society. Okay, now when we talk about Herbert Spencer, we are going to discuss more about this theory of evolution. And when we talk about Marx in Thinkers chapter, there also I tell you how you can see the theory of evolution. Okay, the application of theory of evolution in sociology. So the point is, let me go for a quick recap what all things we have discussed. If you get a question, emergence of sociology, or if you get a question, modernity and social change and emergence of sociology, or if you get a statement, modernity, sociology emerged in response to the challenges posed before modernity, in statements or in quotes, and comment, critically analyze or whatever be the question, This is your answer. Okay, so first you will talk about dark ages. Okay, one or two line. European society before the age of enlightenment was characterized by feudal agricultural feudal estate system, and church, priest, etc. gave excessive reliance on religion, and political aristocracy was engaged in wars unmindful of the plight of the people, right? So that is what about dark ages you can write. Then you will talk about age of enlightenment in terms of scientific revolution, intellectual revolution, and commercial revolution, and you see the changes caused by all these things, and then that led to emergence of sociology. Then you can talk about modernity, the elements of modernity or the dimensions of modernity, the four dimensions that we have discussed: intellectual, political, economic, and social. And then you can also write about the macro changes that caused by modernity, right? Intellectualism, rise of middle class, rise of new liberal democracy, rise of an industrial society. Then you can talk about the micro changes which caused by this macro changes. Industrial society, the evolution of industrial society or the industrialization was not that smooth. It came into associated with a lot of social problems like migration, emergence of slum, workers were working in inhuman working condition with very less wages, etc. And that created a new type of crimes, and new type of poverty and deprivation came into existence. Then when you talk about emergence of liberal democracy, that also came with a lot of uncertainty, because if you talk about societies like England and all, the process was gradual, but in societies like French, it was preceded by a revolution. So the uncertainty about the success of democracy was there in the minds of the people. And when you talk about the middle class actually created a divide in the society, so there was a need to redefine the society was felt. So all these changes you need to explain. You cannot explain all these changes with the existing bodies of knowledge. So you need a new discipline to explain all these things. And a lot of intellectuals, especially French philosophers like Saint-Simon and Auguste Comte, thought of a discipline which can explain all these things, because the immediate context was present in French, because French society was in complete turmoil. And Saint-Simon thought of social physics, but later Auguste Comte, who not only coined the term sociology but also laid the foundation for sociology. And Auguste Comte is known as the father of sociology. Then you need to talk about the intellectual background. You can talk about well-established political history. You can talk about various methods like survey method. You can talk about Darwin's theory of evolution. Then whatever things we are going to discuss in the coming sessions, you can add one or two points from that. Thinkers, you're going to discuss various perspectives. You're going to discuss various methods. You need to be accommodated those things here. Then the answer is complete.